Boom, baby, we're live. What up, what up, what up? It's me, MLD. Welcome to the Tokyo Crypto Show, Season 2. We had massive Bitcoin ETF inflows last week, totaling $3 billion. Plus, Elias is talked to us about some global liquidity trends he's noticed. And we're going to be talking about all of that and so much more today. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us once again.
No pleasure.
Let's go. All right. Can you guys just keep the enthusiasm to a minimum? Thanks so much. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Shout out to everybody on Lou's channel. Shout out to you, Sebastian S. What's up to you, brother? Thanks for watching us. And shout out to Exodia, the forbidden one. Boom, baby, we're live. So, okay. So last week, so from, I would say approximately April 21st is like, that's when we kind of started seeing this liftoff. And last week we had $3 billion inflowing through the Bitcoin ETFs. That being said, we're just going to jump right into it. Lou, you're going to be doing our chart section today. And let's just take a look at, if you want to do, we'll do Bitcoin and Solana as usual. And if there's anything else you'd like to highlight, Lewis, just let us know. And then we can check on ETH BTC. Maybe it's finally turning around.
If you want me to start, yeah, sure.
Yeah, let's just jump right into it. Let's not waste any time. We got a lot of news to cover today. That is so sure.
I'll share my screen real quick and let me know when you can see it.
All right, show is yours. Oh, just give me a second. It's StreamYard is lagging for some reason. Can you reshare that? Sorry, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Cancel that reshare. I don't know. StreamYard, the software's been kind of glitchy, even on my solo streams lately.
No problem.
But yeah, folks, this is a much needed breath of fresh air. We do seem to be sputtering out a bit. Here we go. Perfect. There you go. You got full screen. You can close that tab on the right too for everybody at home. Thanks so much, buddy.
All right, cool. Awesome. So yeah, here's the Bitcoin chart. Like you said, we are moving up a little bit, which is really nice. And this was sort of according to plan, because if you were here last week, you would have saw that right down here, this whole area is not only, the previous resistance turns into support, but it also was a really good, it was the 61.8 golden ratio, my favorite indicator or a useful tool that I use in technical analysis. So it went straight down into it as you can see, and popped off, which is amazing. And now things are looking really, really good, and everyone's screaming that the bull market's back on, but I have to remain a little bit cautious here. And that is because, as you can see, this move up happened right before we fell down and we broke what's known as breaking the market structure. So once we had this rally back here from September all the way up to December, all the way up to the highs, it just started to get range bound up in here. And what happened? Well, just like this, it gets range bound, and then pops up, and then it comes back down and reaches this previous resistance, and then it turns into support. Well, now we have support. It's all these supports down here, and now it might be turning into resistance. So that's the big thing that I'm, concerned about. And so, yeah, if you did not catch this move right here, and you did not catch this move on Bitcoin or Ethereum or altcoins like Fartcoin, which is up 5x in this period, or anything else, then maybe you're thinking to yourself, oh man, I need to jump in because things are going up and things are looking really, really good. But I would say that this is probably the worst area to just jump all in, even if it does end up going higher. Now, what I'm looking to do is to get in if it comes up a little bit higher, like say, 98,000, and we could actually zoom into the daily chart for this. So you could see that it's creating a little bit of a range right here, like you said, it's sputtering out. So that means that there's indecision in the market. Right here, big long candle, there's no indecision there. We're moving up. Even right here, no indecision. This entire area really is no indecision, but now we're starting to get a little up and down action going on, which means that some people are in fact taking profits and considering selling. So what I've done is, thankfully, I was able to get in, in this zone down here and ride this wave up. So I'm not having any FOMO in the markets at this point. And what that allows me to do is to look at it with some clarity and just really think like, man, okay, like we have this big, what we call the origin of the move before it broke the market structure down. And that's usually the place where things turn around. And not only that, but obviously we've been in a downtrend for a really, really long time. And finally, yes, here we finally did break the downtrend by breaking above the previous high. So you could see we have
what was that previous high?
So this previous high was around $88,000.
Got it.
88 to 89,000. Let's just call it 89K. And as you can see, we got the high, lower 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 high. It just keeps on getting lower and lower and lower, right? And then finally, we broke above it. So as soon as you break above it, that is what's known as a market structure shift. And that's to the upside. It's a bullish market structure shift right when we got this big move up. So what typically happens is we come back down, retest the area of breakout, and then continue the move up. And so that's what I'm looking for in this, around 89, maybe $90,000 to get in for a potential long. Now, there is obviously the opportunity for Bitcoin to keep on moving up too. So that's where this action comes in, where if it comes up to say 98,000 and it starts sticking around and it doesn't just come up and then immediately go back down, then I think I will punt along somewhere up here, and I'll just have my stop loss somewhere down here inside of this range that we're currently in, because that defines my risk. That makes it so that if I'm wrong, I'm only going to experience, a 3% loss, right? As opposed to, let's say I buy right now. I'm getting the FOMO because I didn't buy, anywhere down here. So now I have a bunch of FOMO, and I just, I ape in right here in at the resistance, at the previous support/resistance area, at the origin of the move, at this whole area where it's the most likely to break down. And I just say, screw it, and I buy in right now. Well, what if it does, what if it turns around? Okay, maybe it turns around and it ends up, bouncing like how I think it will probably do. But there's also the opportunity, or there's also the option of it turning around and then, making a lower low and continuing to move down. Because on the higher time frames, so on the weekly time frame, we are technically still in a downtrend because this was the high. And really, maybe we're just creating a lower high before another move down back into the golden ratio, back into the golden pocket, or maybe into this 76%, which tends to happen a lot. So you could see a lot of times it comes down into 76%. So those are the options. Those are like the things that I'm thinking right now for Bitcoin. And because of that, it's a little, iffy. It's very iffy I would not buy right now, but if it comes back down, I would. And you can also see the total market cap. So the total market cap of all of the Bitcoins put together, or at least the top, I think this is the top 500, it's moving up. It's doing the same exact thing as Bitcoin. However, for this one, it's a little bit more obvious on the weekly chart that we created the high back in December 9th, December 10th, somewhere around there. And then this second high, it's not as high as the first. And so it looks a lot weaker. Just you could tell that like this right here is a lot more weaker than here. And so we're coming back into another area, which is why I'm thinking, okay, maybe we get a little bit of a push up, a little bit of a more of a push up in the overall market, but we could still turn around on the overall market cap. And I almost think that that's the most likely thing to happen, because if we look at the Bitcoin dominance chart, you could see that Bitcoin dominance is just continuing to go up and up and up and up. It's not stopping. This right here was the best chance. And remember how I always say the 61.8, that golden ratio, that's why I love it so much, is because out of literally since I guess December of 2022, the best opportunity to buy was somewhere around was November, when Trump got elected and all of these bullish catalysts happened. And that happened to be at that 61.8 golden ratio that I love, right? And Bitcoin dominance started to fall. Alts started to rocket up. And in November and a little bit of December, that's when we saw the craziness of the markets, right? And everyone was really jumping in. And now, obviously, the markets tanked and Bitcoin dominance kept on going up. So where's the next level that I want to look for is at the next Fibonacci. So this is 61.8. This right here is the 78.6 Fibonacci level, which lines up with, this support, this resistance, this support, this area. Generally speaking, there's a lot of, it could go a little bit higher, it could go a little bit lower, but this is really the next area that I'm looking at. And we still have a little bit more room to go. So what I'm thinking is maybe we, come down. So on the Bitcoin chart, what this means is that maybe the prices tank a little bit, because as this goes up, prices go down. Okay. And so I'm thinking maybe prices continue to go down just a little bit. And then maybe around $90,000, the Bitcoin dominance chart will top out and we'll get a little bit of a reprieve on the Bitcoin dominance chart, and altcoins and other coins will, move up. So maybe that happens in a week or 2 weeks, but this is getting to be at a level where maybe it's not a bad time to buy, to buy some altcoins. And we could actually, let's just look at some altcoins now. So we have Solana. So let's take a look at Solana against, against Bitcoin, right? And this is, okay, so here's the Solana against Bitcoin chart. And for me, there's a couple areas that I'm looking at for this chart. And let's just take the fib from, yeah. So it looks like this is really to make sure that we get the best, Fibonacci. I want to look for an area. I think this one's pretty good. And I like this because if you take a look right here, it bounced pretty much directly off of, this Fibonacci level right there. And sorry. So we have this, and then this is 61.8. Okay, area, and it usually bounces within this zone. So it did, and it's looking okay. It's not bad. So maybe it comes down a little bit and then zooms back up again. But as far as Solana goes, I like to first look at it against Bitcoin and think to myself, okay, is it going to outperform Bitcoin or not? Well, I'm looking at this, and we have basically this range that we had, up here. It was just like, it didn't matter if you bought Solana or if you bought Bitcoin. It would just keep on going back and forth and back and forth. And this Solana like Sol against BTC, this literally just means that they are going up and down pretty much equally within this range. So it's pretty much a 1-to-1 at this point. And from here all the way down, it means that you would have been better off buying Bitcoin because Bitcoin outperformed Solana, right? So now you have to think to yourself, okay, is this at a good enough support? And is this basically down enough? And is Solana still foundationally doing everything and building everything that will have it eventually move up past and outperform Bitcoin in the future? And it's at a weird area because really this down here was the previous range, right? I guess this will make it easier. Is like this was the previous range before, right? So now we have this range right here, and then we have this range right here. And where are we? We're like sort of right in between the two. So it would be safer to buy it a little bit lower, but it's like anywhere in this box if you're trying to outperform Bitcoin. But sometimes you don't get that. So it's really like just like the last few weeks, it's been or last couple months, it's been a trader's paradise because things have been so iffy for holders. It's looking better. It's looking better, and it's actually on this lower time frame. It's actually looking pretty decent to buy, but in terms of like the big areas, I'm still not totally sure whether to go into Bitcoin or whether to go into Solana, right? But maybe if we look at the actual SOL chart against the dollar, we could see something else happening. So let's take a look at that. And I cleared out my charts to try to make it easier. But let's just plot this out. We got the highs up here from 2021, which ended up basically being the highs for 2025, which is actually wild. And then we have this area that was support, resistance, right? Remember, supports turn into resistances. And what happened here? Turned into another resistance. And what happened here? Once it flipped it, it turned into support again, which is crazy. And then we had this little move right here, which I'm sure knocked a lot of people off their feet, because obviously if you're looking at this and you see that there's support and turns into resistance, support, you think, oh, we come down here, maybe if we come back up, you want to, it's going to turn into resistance and you want to go down, but it didn't. It actually kept on going. So that's really bullish for Solana in that regard. And it brings it back into this range that we were in, right? So now really, oh man, if this comes back down into this move right here, not only does it have this, let me zoom in a little bit further too, so you can see it more clearly. Not only does it have this candle, which is a very, very bullish technical candle for it to come back into and then zoom up, but like we just mentioned, it's this entire support now that it's back inside this range. So now if it comes down, it still has this big support available for it. So I think Solana anywhere around 140 or I guess 100, 139, all the way down to maybe like 125. This would be the best time, the best place to look for longs, because we have all of these things that are, holding the price up. And then you could really just long it down here and potentially get all the way back up to 250. Or if you want to, be a little bit more cautious, you could use this area back here, at 200. But Solana's looking pretty decent, especially if we do get a pullback. I really wouldn't mind. And dang, even on the daily, it's looking pretty good too. So Bitcoin's at the make it or break it point. Solana is looking not bad, to be honest. And if Bitcoin, let's say that, let's go back to the Bitcoin chart real quick. If we can, let me clear this up. if Bitcoin does actually, get super, super bullish for one reason or another, maybe, the talks with China just automatically get fixed and the tariffs get fixed and everything gets good, and it does end up going up and then super gigascending, then yeah, Solana and a lot of these other alts will end up gigascending as well and probably outperforming Bitcoin. I just think that because of where it is, it's a little bit tough to say. And I would much rather get in at a place as a trader, like, someplace where it makes more sense, like when it was down here, and when the emotions are really bad, because you always have to think, when is the best time to buy and when's the best time to sell? Usually what's happening with most people are usually really, really, really bullish and crazy bullish, like AKA how they were over here, when that's usually the worst time to buy. And what happens when they're really, really bearish, AKA down here? It's usually the best time to buy when people are really bearish, when people are thinking that it's going to go down. And what are they thinking right now? They're thinking, and what are they saying? Everyone's thinking very bullishly and thinking, oh, it's going to go up. So yeah, it's at a weird place. But there are times where the consensus does end up playing out with the charts and with the price. And that might be happening right now, or that might happen. But technically, from a technical perspective, and I'm a technical trader, that's what I do. I'm looking at this area as being a resistance, and that's why I can't really get into buying anything right now. I would rather wait for a little bit of a pullback at least, and then if it does, then I would jump into Bitcoin. I jump into Solana. Down here, I jump into almost everything really. And then we got Ethereum. So let's take a look. Let me break this down. We got Ethereum, and this is looking not too bad either. Let's see. Did it break out of this downtrend? Ooh, that's yeah, this is actually looking pretty bullish, not gonna lie, or it's at least getting a good setup. So let's just take a look at and mark out. We got the high, the lower high, the lower high, the lower high, the lower. Jesus Christ, Ethereum is so bad. Lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. And
hey Lou, I got a question.
I look at Ethereum. Yeah.
Hey Lou, I got a question. Since the ETH has been it's been on the downtrend for so long, do you think it would kind of go sideways for a while before it goes up? Or do you think it could get a V-shaped recovery on ETH?
That's a good point, because a lot of times it is hard to get a V-shaped recovery if you're if you're down so bad, and unless something fundamentally changes, or we get some huge news event or something like that, then yeah, it could do a big V-shaped recovery. But a lot of times we do get these long prolonged areas of sideways movement, and because I remember there have been times where I do see something like this, like I do see like, oh shit, it's breaking out, I buy it, and then it's just like, I'm waiting and wait like weeks and weeks and weeks, thinking that it was just going to be like going up immediately. But because there's been so much downwards pressure, it doesn't end up, doing the big pump that you think, right? So yeah, there's 100% a possibility of it just going sideways, and that might even be a higher probability of it doing that than simply just like mooning, going up and just that's it. Yeah, I'm just saying man, if you like ETH, then it's at a value zone, it's in the value zone. So it's like I'm trying to find like any argument to buy Ethereum, like it's at the previous support areas back from 2023. So you got that. but it's like, man, it just looks really bad. I'm trying to find some. All right, we got this one bullishness, for Ethereum was the fact that it's it sort of broke out of this downtrend. We got that. But if you want to count, let's see, can you count this as like this area as a lower high? I suppose you could. It's a little bit iffy to count this as a lower high, but if you did, then you could say, okay, we broke up, but we made the market structure shift to the upside, and now now we're in a bullish market structure, and you could think that this is going to happen, something like this. But if you don't count this as a high, and you count this right here, or I mean, honestly, if you count this right, this is technically the high. It looks like it's like this. So this right here is the high at, what is this, 1977. It really, like, if it comes back above here, if it gets back above 2K, then it's like, okay, 100%, it's back in an uptrend, and that's the time where it's going to be very safe to long, because you could just put your stop down here, and you could long here, put your stop down here, and then hopefully it goes back up.
Then all it needs to do from there is just double in market cap, and then a little bit more, and then it'll finally catch up with all the other runners.
Yeah, I mean, let's just take a like. What's the if it goes back to all-time highs? That is 100. It can double. It's 122%. Wait, actually, did it? It didn't get back to all-time highs this year. The all-time highs are still from November of 2021. Holy crap. So yeah, Ethereum made lower highs than it did in 2021. Like, that's so bad. That's so bad that like you wanna be in coins, in my opinion, that have made higher highs than their previous market cycle highs, because that's showing you a lot of strength. Bitcoin, obviously, Bitcoin had its previous market cycle highs were here. It's like if you were looking at Ethereum versus Bitcoin right now, Ethereum is like basically here. Like, this is where Ethereum is, because this is November 2021, and Ethereum never even reached there. Ethereum basically came back up here and then fell, and now it's here. This is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is such the better choice. It's just so much obviously better, and obviously you could see that by looking at this Ethereum against Bitcoin, right? So until this chart, something starts happening on this chart, and I guess you could say, well, we're at the lows, at the lowest point since 2019. Then if you could look at this chart and you start seeing something happen that's bullish on this time frame, on the Ethereum against Bitcoin chart, then maybe you could go into Ethereum and say, all right, maybe it's time for Ethereum to start outperforming Bitcoin. But as of right now, like, you could take a look at this with no indicator, no nothing. Look at this chart and just be like, why would you ever buy this? Why would you ever buy Ethereum against Bitcoin? If any chart looks like this, it's so bad. It makes no sense whatsoever. Maybe if it was doing something like this, then you could say, all right, it's looking like it's starting to perform. It's starting to do something that will give me the opportunity for it to continue to move up. But it's not doing that. It's just flat line. It's just flat line for forever, and it's probably maybe keep on going down. Maybe not, but we'll have to see. But yeah, you have to look at these charts, and you have to look for some type of bullishness before going in. So that, just go into Bitcoin instead of Ethereum, unless this chart starts to do something. And it's really not doing anything right now. So
there's a chance.
there's a chance. There's sort of a chance. It's not continuing to die off and like it got hit, by a car or something and it's just slowly dying on the side of the road. Like now it's maybe in the hospital on life support, but like it's looking pretty bad. Like it's not going to make it.
This thing has been in a coma since 2022 and it's not waking up.
Yeah, maybe they invent a new technology that they could inject into it, or do some defibrillators to pump it up a little bit. But it's so bad. So I don't think Ethereum, unless I start seeing something on the chart, I would rather just stick with Bitcoin. Or Solana. Solana, like look at Solana. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Like Ethereum, what we just saw, it was like this, and now it's like just sideways, right? But Solana actually looks good because not only did it come back above the previous highs, so now it's, you could technically say it's an uptrend on at least the daily time frame. Since it did do that, now it's giving me a really good risk to reward or reward to risk. I could long it here. If I'm wrong, I just have my stop underneath, here, or maybe even down here, somewhere around here. And if I'm wrong, then yeah, I'll lose out on a little bit, but the chances of being right are way, way, way higher because it already showed some bullish momentum. It already showed that people want to buy it and it's back inside of this range. So that's what you need to do when you're looking at the charts, when you're trying to determine what to buy. You want to look to see, is there actually some, reasons on the charts for me to buy, or am I simply just buying the hype, and also obviously, if something comes up into a big resistance area, like how it is back here, then is this, are you going to be buying because everyone's telling you to buy and they're screaming at the top of their lungs to buy? Or are you going to look at this and say, man, like we've hit this area so many times and this is where we got rejected from, before. So even though everyone's super bullish up here, do I really want to buy it up here? Or am I going to use objective data, look at the charts, use logic and reasoning and say, look, I'm going to take some money off of the table up here. And, maybe if it does come up and keep on moving up, I'm going to lose out on that. But I've caught the meat of the move by catching all of this entire move up, and that's what you got to do. You got to try to remove emotion as much as possible when trading and just look at, sorry, I always forgot that. And just look at objective data and, look at what the chart has told you before in the past and, mark out your levels and have your notifications on. So yeah, that's, Bitcoin, total market cap, Solana, and Ethereum. And we got pretty much everything. And
well,
too.
I got a question. Can you go back to Bitcoin real quick?
Sir.
You mentioned at that last bottom trough there that you were able to buy around that right there. Yep. You said you were able to buy around there. What indicators were you looking at? What made you to want to go ahead and, want to buy at that point? Because it was a lot of despair at that time.
Yeah, there definitely was. And remember what I said, usually the peak areas to buy are the peak areas of despair. And usually the peak areas to sell are the peak areas of euphoria. So there are times where the consensus is correct, but typically that's the way to play it, right? So the reason why I was able to buy like literally like here is mostly because of technical analysis. The number one thing is the golden ratio. That's what I used, which is the Fibonacci 61.8, like I always said. So I use this, and I always use the Fibonacci from the low to the high, right? I always do that, and you could even say it up here, right? And I always do Fibonacci from the low to the high of the move, of the previous big move. And I always mark out this area. So if you're on the charts, I highly recommend doing this because this is always the highest area for things to bounce from, right? It's the 61.8 golden ratio. And then I look for other I look for other things on the chart that coincide with this area.
Do you have a date in EST time or like American time zone? About what date did you actually make your acquisition?
I could check, but my biggest one, I remember it was somewhere it was between April 4th and April 7th, or I guess April 8th, was when I made my biggest move, because I was looking at this for it's known as the 3 drives down. It's a pattern before moving up, but like my biggest thing is is this area. And then when I look for confluence, known as confluence, or other things that coincide with this area, I could see that this was the previous resistance turned into support, which I like to play that. And that's also why I was thinking, even back here, that's why I was thinking we were going to get rejected after we fell down. I was thinking, well, what's going to happen? Like, what do I want to do? I want to sell if it comes back up here. And, it came back up here at this time, and then we got rejected from it. So I was just thinking, okay, we got the golden ratio, 61.8. We got the previous support, the previous resistances usually turns into support. And then we're getting the 3 drives down. And on the lower time frames, let's see if there's something here. I remember there was something that happened. I can't, but I don't remember the exact time frame on the. Oh yeah. So what I like to do is I draw out my boxes, right? So this is the big box from the 61.8 and the previous resistance / support, right? The previous SR area. And what I do is I draw out the boxes, and then I wait until the price comes down in and touches it, and I scan down through the lower time frames, such as the 12-hour, the 6-hour, the 4-hour, the 1 hour, right? And then I look for a very specific type of candle. And this very specific type of candle that I look for looks exactly like where is it? Looks exactly like this. It has a long wick on the bottom and a small, a small candle on the top.
The hammer or no?
Yeah. So it looks like it's a hammer. It looks exactly like a hammer, right? Here's the handle. Right. Here's the thing. And I look for either I look for this candle, or I look for something else, which is known as a doji, look for this right here. I could tell you like all the specific candles, but I don't pay attention to the candle names. I paid attention to candle names for years, and then I found a new method that I really, really like, which is just the long wick candles. Is it long wick to the downside, or is it long wick to the upside? And where is it happening, right? So if you get a long wick candle like this or like this down inside of the area that you already predetermined, like I looked at this area, I plotted this area out literally when Bitcoin was well, what I technically do, to be honest, what I technically do is I start the Fibonacci and I just keep on raising it every single week. I'll just keep on raising it and raising it and raising it and raising it until finally the price does start turning around. So this level, like technically, it has been plotted out since the highs of January 20th. And so once we started to turn around, I just never moved this. I just never moved it. And when we did come down into this area and we finally hit this area, okay, my alerts start going off, and I start, looking into the lower time frames. And then what I see, or what I saw is first I saw this candle, a long wick candle into the support. and then it came back down, and we had another one. So we had two of them at the area where I want this to happen, where I know that if this happens within this area, then there's a high likelihood of it moving up. So the thing is, these candles could happen anywhere, to be honest. But if you get a candle like this, and let's say it happens, let's bring it back. Let's say it happens here or here or here or here. Like, to me, that's just noise. I don't care if it happens at any of these places, because these places are not significant, significant areas. Okay. What I would do is I would care if we get a candle, say the opposite type of candle, something like this with a long wick to the upside. If I see something like this happen at a resistance, so if I saw this happen somewhere up here, or if I saw this happen, let's say, actually it might have happened somewhere up here, then I would know, okay, I want to sell. I need to get out.
It's pushing downwards, right? Compared to pushing upwards.
Exactly. So this is literally every single candle is a fight between the bulls and the bears. And let's say that it starts out like this is the opening price. And then the bears come in and people sell, and there's a lot of selling pressure and keeps on selling and selling and selling. The candle is just going to keep on going down and down and down and down and down, right? If it keeps on selling off. But then what happens if the buyers come back in and step back in? Then this right here is the low, and let's just say like this is the low. And if the buyers come back in and start and literally shoot the price back up, and it ends up closing the day or the hour or the time frame a little bit higher or higher up, then that means that the bulls were strong enough to come back in and push the price all the way back up. So that's really bullish. If it was bearish, then the bulls wouldn't be able to do this. Maybe it could go down and up and down and up, but it would end up falling down, and there'd be no wick to the downside. But like I said, if the bulls can come back in and shoot the price back up, then all that this means is that during this time period, the price came down to this low, and then it was able to come back up, and it closed out right here. So that means the bulls are in control. If it happens during, within a good zone, within a good area. I mean, technically, the bulls are in control whenever you see this happen for this specific time period, but you can't just look at any candle at any point in time and say, oh, I'm gonna use that candle, and I'm gonna trade based just off that candle. No, you have to have the whole entire picture, involved. You have to be involved with the whole picture, like using the high time frames, like how I did here. Remember, the first thing I did was draw the fib and draw out this support resistance area. That was the first thing that I did. And because if I only used candles, I'm sure I could find some of these candles on the lower time frames somewhere anywhere within this entire zone. But it's all noise. So what you want to do is you want to plot out the levels and then, trade from there as unemotionally as possible. So
listen, this is so much good information, but I want to keep moving because that was just so much, but like such quality. You're getting way better at this, by the way. I put that in the private chat. Like, this is phenomenal delivery, dude. Let's go around to other members of the chat because we really are of the panel here because we want to kind of get on with today's show. But
Sorry.
You're good. No, you're good. I mean, chat came to a dead halt, which usually means everybody's paying attention. So phenomenal, bro. Thank you so much.
All right, bro. Let's move on and let's see. I don't know if anyone has any fundamental news about the tariffs or the China relations or the war or anything that's like foundational, because like what I'm thinking of is like we're at the resistance area and what has actually changed like in the real world. I pay attention to the charts. I try not to, I don't watch the news. I don't really pay
You're gonna
attention to all
trigger
that.
James if you say that.
But like,
What?
Nothing has changed.
Nothing has
if-
changed, man.
Look, well, yeah, but if nothing has changed on the negative side, then what is like what's the
That-
difference
you
other
trade
than just
mineral
the
deal
price is
aside?
higher?
Oh,
Because-
sorry, buddy. Go.
If you were negative at the lows, right? If you were screaming like it's going down, like we have the tariffs, we have China, we have the war, we have all this stuff at the last 75,000, if that's what you're saying, what has happened in the real world that warrants the price to come up? Or is this just a dead cat bounce and the price is higher? Or did anything actually happen? And then you could say, okay, that warrants the price to be higher, and maybe that's a more bullish case, because if nothing changed fundamentally, foundationally, then this is most likely a lower high, and we're probably gonna keep on going down. But
Yeah, so let me share it.
With Bitcoin.
Yeah, with everything.
Yeah. We do seem to be sputtering out, but I mean, some fundamental sides in the back. I'll talk about it next. But James, I'll tag you in, buddy.
Okay. Can you see the
There we go.
screen?
Yep. Total crypto market cap.
Yep. Again, it's always about the total crypto market cap, right? Because we're looking at the total So one of the things we got to remember, I'm gonna make this screen big.
And chat, wake up. Put a 1 in the chat if you're paying attention. Put a 2 in the chat if you're not actually really paying attention. This is just background noise. But I mean,
So,
if you're listening to what these guys are saying.
As you see from here, we came out of the bear market, I would say around here, January of 2023. Then we kind of stayed sideways here as what they called accumulation, right? So people were buying back and forth. It's when market is moving sideways, that pretty much said whatever the security or commodity or whatever you're looking at is changing hands. So some people were selling, some people were buying, but the sellers were about the same as buyers. So they were changing of hands here, right? Then we started our bull run here in October of 2023. Then we did the first cycle up, which stopped in March of 2024, which probably coincided with a Bitcoin ETF getting approved here, or rumors of it, then finally peaked, right? The enthusiasm died down. Then we kind of did a down move here, as you can see. I'm going to make this bigger. Or we did, I would say, consolidation. See, we moved up from here down here by what? Is it about $1 trillion?
Yeah.
All the way up to 2.75 trillion. That's a huge move, right? So now market kind of took a breather while consolidated. So some people were taking profits. Some people were kind of saying, okay, I'm going to start buying it. Then we hit the second, again, here's the bottom of that here. I guess that's September 2024, when we start going to election cycle. Then we had some excitement. Then Trump got elected. We had this huge move, which was cycle number 2, right? Then once Trump got elected, we had a huge move. Then we topped out here at, what's that? Let's call it 3.6 trillion, from all the way from 2.2 trillion. So we had another 1.5 trillion or so come in. Then the enthusiasm died down and Trump started doing tariff stuff, right? Now we're kind of doing another thing here. So like Lou said, we kind of stopped right at the start of the move here, which was at about 2.2 trillion, right? Here's what I need you guys to pay attention to. When you're looking at a market sentiment, saying that is it market being bullish, is it being bearish? Two of the moving averages typically people use is a 50-day moving average and 200-day moving average. Okay? As long as 50-day moving average, which is shorter term average or intermediate term average, is above the 200 moving average, it's still considered a bull market, right?
Yeah.
Then the price, you want to see the price above the 50-day moving average. But since this is a weekly chart, we have, instead of 50, we got 10, 5 trading days, and we got 40, 200, right? So 10 is 50, 40 is 200, since it's in weekly. As you see from here, when we came out of the bear market and started the bull run, the 10 or 50, I'm going to just say 10, guys, just to 10-week moving average has been above the 40-week moving average. Do you guys see that?
Yeah.
All the way through. Even during this so-called, people were saying, oh, no, the cycle's over. Nope, the averages said we were still in the bull market.
And that's
what we see here.
Which EMA was that?
What?
That was the 5 or the 10?
10 was above 40.
Okay.
What we see here is the market saying that, hey, you idiots, I'm actually taking a breath here and catching up, trying to digest all this up move, and people are taking profits, and people are buying, people are taking profits, people are buying. And here is the test. Instead telling you, hey, I'm going to give you a fake out, right? And see how many of you idiots sell. And right here, the market did a fake out. But again, it stayed within this up channel. You see it, right? And the moving average is 10 was above 40. Still, except the market cap or the price, whatever you want to call it, just dipped below the 200 or 40. Confusion. Then it jumped back up, established the support at 10, and rode it all the way up. What does this look like? It looks pretty much like this here, doesn't it?
I was looking at that. If you look at that November, because those 5 candles to you, right where your cursor is, right? Those 5 green candles trending up the stairs. That was like November, right there. Yeah, that was November. That kind of looks like what we saw. If you scroll back, that looks like that previous one there. I was wondering because it kind of looks like, if you look at those side by side, it kind of looks like we're recreating it, because now we're kind of having that detox.
What did I say in the beginning of this whole thing? There's going to be about 3 to 5 cycles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cycle 1, cycle 2. It's just a big wave motion. Market just goes in waves, just like the ocean, right?
Yeah.
So look at this. Look, what is market telling us? Hey, 10-day came close to, or 10-week moving average came close to 40. Do you guys see it?
Yep.
But it was still above, except the price dipped, then came back up. And it was right around the bottom of that down channel. So what is market telling you? Hey, I'm still in the bull cycle, but I'm going to try to give you another head fake and see if you idiots sell. And a lot of people sold, right?
Yeah.
Now what? Now market has recovered and came back above 10-week moving average, just like here, right?
Yeah.
Now we're going to go back into, my guess is that we're going to go back into some sideways action, like here, for about a month. Then we're going to resume the cycle number 3, right?
Yeah.
Which will put us.
Be no FOMC cut in May either.
Well, I'm thinking it's going to be topping out somewhere summertime. We're going to school, right?
Cycle 3?
Yep, cycle 3. But like I said, typical bull market contains 3 to 5 cycles. So what we're not sure is that, is cycle 3 the end of the bull market, or are we going to have 1 or 2 more cycles? Remember, 3, 4, or 5 cycles, right? Unless we go into this crazy super cycle theory. But based on this, I think we're going to see somewhere in the summertime, maybe September, we're going to see a cycle 3 top. And that's where we got to really be careful, because we're not sure if it's the end or is it just a correction. So we're going to hit cycle 3, then we're going to pull another correction coming down to kind of where we started, right? Then if that kind of penetrates the up channel here, and you see the 10 and 40 day crossing over, doing a death cross, then we know for a fact that bull market is over. And let's kind of look at, where is that? Global liquidity. Let me move this up, this up, this up. I'm going to go to monthly chart now, because this kind of eye chart because of this. You guys can still see it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, monthly chart looks pretty good. Like monthly
Yeah, right?
chart, obvious. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, it's just spring. It's a spring here, right? It dipped down and come back right up.
Yeah. Monthly chart, the higher time frame, it's like high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high.
Still ended up
Maybe it's a higher low.
Yep. But again, it all depends on your trading plan, right, guys? Because Lou, you're a professional trader and you're trying to generate income while trading. So you have to be in a shorter holding time period, right? But if you are holding it like I am, which is I'm more of a macro trader, I'm still holding because it says we're still in the bull cycle, bull market. As you see here, global liquidity peaked kind of right before the crypto market peaked in 2021. It's been going down, 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 down. And let me make this a little bit bigger. Oh, sorry, guys. Look at the global liquidity. It's been on the downtrend, but now it's been bottomed out. Now it's coming back up, right? And what's remarkable is that Bitcoin, even global liquidity was going down, because of the ETF flow, it was continuing to go up. The crypto market, mostly Bitcoin again, right? So as you can see, global liquidity has been going sideways here, and now it just penetrated its downward trend line. So now we're going to see the liquidity popping in or coming in. So am I still bullish? Yeah, nothing has changed, guys. Nothing has changed.
Great data. Elias, we're going to tag you right in, and then I'm going to close it out with some fundamental stuff that I just been noticed, or just some ETF numbers. We're still waiting.
I got a quick thing.
Hey,
I guess
go
Arizona approved, or their state Senate and Congress passed a bill for the Bitcoin strategic reserve. Now it's up to the governor, right?
Yep.
And what's
Is
the
the
other
governor,
one?
is the governor Republican or Democratic?
She's the Democrat. Kathy
Uh-oh.
Hobbs. Yeah, and there's another one that just got approved.
Let's see what happens.
So there was another, I can't remember another
State?
yeah, state that just got
Just go to
approved.
bitcoinlaws.io and you can see. Here, I'll pull it up. Here, I'll do it. So bitcoinlaws.io. Let's go to, okay, so this is where these are live, but actually, give me 1 second. I'll pull it up.
Okay.
But yeah, let me see. They changed their website. Oh no. Let's see. Total measures. Can we go to the state one? Was it another one that was recently passed?
Yeah, I think so. I saw in the chat earlier.
Maybe, is it North Carolina?
Oh yeah, that sounds like it. Yep.
Yeah, right here. So Arizona, North Carolina. So committee, this is it right here. Texas, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Arizona.
Can we see it?
What's that?
I can't see anything on the chart. I mean, on the screen. It
Oh, really?
says-
Nobody sees anything? Chad, can you see it?
Yep.
I'm seeing it.
Oh, maybe it's just my thing then.
At Thailand internet.
Better call
But
a
yeah.
lady boy to come and fix it. Can I share one more thing here, guys?
Yeah, go
Another
ahead.
thing.
Sure.
All right. I know big XRP fans up here, XRP army.
Uh-oh. Oh God.
Look, Ripple offered 4 to 5 billion for stablecoin issuer Circle.
Oh no.
Yep. Again, being in the traditional finance for over 20 years, people don't do acquisitions, like this during a bear cycle.
Yeah.
Right? Because they don't. There's no money. You have no money to do acquisition during the bear cycle unless you're super duper, Warren Buffett type of hedge fund like a Blackstone, or Warren Buffett like a type of private equity. But here's the biggest part, that the little nugget of knowledge that tells you, where is that? Maybe it's this one. It's very cool. Here it is. Okay, Ripple put a bid in to buy Circle for 4 to 5 billion, and Circle told them to F off, right? We're gonna go IPO. They want to do IPO, right? So here's something that you learn from traditional finance. One of the key drivers of IPO is valuation. What is your company worth, right? Because that determines the share price when your company goes public. While during the bear market, your valuation gets horrible because nobody wants to touch it, right? But when you're in bull market, your valuation gets to be very, very sweet and favorable, right? So when Circle, one of the biggest stable coin issuer, saying that no, 4 to 5 billion, go F off, we're gonna go IPO. That means that Circle still believes that we're in the bull market. Does that make sense to you guys? Because they will not have gone IPO route if we're in a bear market and their valuation would be horrible. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
Good stuff. Let's jump right into Elias. You can pull it up whenever you're ready, buddy. There we
I'm
go.
ready.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, take it away, boss.
Yeah, I'm basically agreeing with Louis and James. I just have some additional data to throw at it, and a little bit of mining news, which got more relevant in the last 3 weeks probably. So the first is just this now 13-year trend line, this orange one going from the bottom left to the top right, just on the Bitcoin weekly since 2012. And if we zoom in a bit more here, one sec, look at the current bull phase from the last low in November 2022, we just see that we went from below. This trend line basically hit it, or basically had it as resistance or as support. And in case we want to go above it again, or at least hit it, we would be at a price of about 120K right now. So this more or less coincides with the targets James gave us before. And that's just this one point from my perspective. The other big perspective is on the mining side. And this is, if we look at the global hash rate, we can see that we had a pretty nice top here, and then it just plummeted. And I can remove the difficulty from the chart, and this is the global hash rate. So what this means is that a lot of miners switched off their equipment, their whole data centers, because it wasn't profitable anymore, or it was unprofitable for so long that they couldn't take the costs anymore. And what this means usually, if you see such a big dip in the hash rate, is that those miners that still have to keep running, or even those that switched off, now have to cover operational costs with Bitcoin they saved up. So this is adding a lot of selling pressure, and this started in mid-April. And if we go back to the chart and see what happened in mid-April, this was right in this area here. So this most likely, you can say Bitcoin adds about 40 to 45 million, or Bitcoin mining adds about 40 to 45 million of new Bitcoin in US dollar value to the market each day. So compared to ETFs, this is probably between 10 and 50% of all of the ETF volume, of the daily volume we've seen so far on a consistent basis. And in this time frame here, because miners, they don't start hurting and immediately switch off. Often they just start selling because they just want to pay their employees and they want to keep everything running to not get operational and maintenance problems. Usually they start selling early because they might suspect that other miners are selling too, or that the price goes down. But what I'm getting to is right now they switched off, and this means only the profitable ones are still online. The others gave up and capitulated, which in turn takes a lot of selling pressure off of the market, about maybe 10 to 100 million per day, depending on how much they had to sell when they broke down. And the nice thing why I'm telling you this is because we can see this in the trends. So this is from Blockware. And here you see the average miner break-even cost in green. So this is basically if the break-even cost is at 20K, for example, the Bitcoin price also has to be at 20K, that they don't mine at a loss. If it's above 20K, they mine with a profit. If it's below, they mine with a loss. And each time the Bitcoin price hits the break-even price, we see some price action, at least after it hits it, for a considerable amount of time. I painted this in a bit here. You kind of see where they meet, and then we usually see a Bitcoin pump. Here again, you see the same thing, and we have to make sure that we differentiate between causation and correlation here. But all in all, we just see this trend, and what we've seen, and here we have the same one, I didn't paint it in, but what we've seen right now is we had a really long period of this. We're shaking out unprofitable miners out of the market, and they were selling off and suppressing price here. This is probably like a 10 to 20 to 30% burn, or basically sell-off pressure, and 10 to 20 to 30% equivalent to what was coming in from the ETFs over all this time since the beginning of the year, and even since maybe November 2024. So all in all, I think this will, if history repeats, we'll see a bit more of selling pressure, maybe from Bitcoin miners, but in like this area and those weeks, most likely the Bitcoin miners that went offline and gave up, they will not come back till we see considerably higher Bitcoin prices, because you'll need something like 10% of a margin to actually make a profit and run everything like a good company. And right now, the average mining price is at something like 89 to 90K. So there's a lot of miners that won't come back, which takes a lot of selling pressure off the market for probably till June or beginning of July. And this is why I also think that we will have some late sellers in the mining space, and then the pressure will be completely taken off. And this is also really conducive to the price going up after a small sideways period of a few weeks.
Good stuff,
So,
man.
TLDR is sideways action from my point of view, and then we are free to go up as long as we don't completely dip for some unknown reasons.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yep.
Yep. Phenomenal. Awesome, man. Thank you so much. It's phenomenal here. Okay. So I'm going to talk about some stuff real quick, just what I'm looking on my back end here. So when we look at what was happening with Bitcoin in this last little bit of period, okay. So this is the Bitcoin on the daily chart, right? Actually, I'm just going to go full screen. So Bitcoin here on the daily chart, as you can see, we kind of like, this is when Lewis noticed with those two special wicks he was mentioning. That's when he kind of got in. And this was on April 9th. So April 9th is when we started. We went from, we wicked down to 74,000, and then we wicked up to about 83,000 in one day, which, given the previous history we've had since basically the all-time high of Trump getting in office in January 20th, we've been in kind of like a downtrend, right? It's been pretty brutal for a lot of people. Like right around here is when we wicked up to, like, it was like 109 and change, all-time high. And then since then, we've just been trending down. So we started to see a turnaround here. Now, this, in my opinion, is definitely connected to what we just saw with the ETFs. So take a look here real quick. This is the history, because the greatest indicator available for the average person at home is this right here. These are the inflows for the ETFs right here, okay? So dating back to, let's start at the 14, 15, 16, it started turning around here on the 17th. And then this week, from April 21st to April 25th, this was the $3 billion in inflow. So from April 21st at home, if you're tracking on your charts, to April 25th, it would just go back here. This is right when it started, like right here, April 21st. And then we had a pretty nice size giga candle here. We went at 80. We wicked down from like 86-ish up to about 93 and change. And now we've kind of been consolidating to a degree here. So we had a large amount of inflows last week. And as of right now, the numbers are in today, but on Monday we had 591. Tuesday we had 172. That's been pushing us up. In addition to that, too, if you're not remembering, you guys you can track this at home. You go to SaylorTracker.com. Michael Saylor, this is when he's been accumulating. You can see here, this was on the 13th. He made an acquisition of 285 million, and then he did $500 million, 555 million. That was on 420, and then he recently made another acquisition of $1.42 billion. That was on the 27th. Okay. So looking at all that, you can see why we've kind of been having some good price action in regards to Bitcoin. Now, these are the numbers for today. So we are actually, for the first day, we have finally actually have a negative day. Today is a negative day. So if we're going to see, but the price is actually holding up, because we're still, right now, we're at 94.6 basically. But a Grayscale with a negative 32 million, Bitwise with negative 23, Art Capital 131 negative, Fidelity 137 million. But what's very interesting, the leading indicator I always track is a BlackRock, because everybody knows BlackRock runs the world. This is their I think it's like their 10th consecutive day making inflows. Yesterday they had a large day. I think yesterday they had about 600 something in. So really big numbers coming from BlackRock, and that's the real one that I like to track. Now, me and Lewis have been talking about this as well in regards to Bitcoin dominance. Now, as you can see, Bitcoin dominance has been consistently going up since about the 27th of March. This is the daily, right? Now, what you want to see is when this continues to build up, like this is going to reach a point where it's critical mass, and then it's going to start going down. And that last time that happened to a larger degree was right here on February-ish, but larger. This is like about the week of November 18th right here. 18th and downwards. This is when you saw everybody was making so much money with meme coins. I mean, you know, all the memes were ripping so hard during this time because the profits from Bitcoin were then being sold and people were buying alts that were coincidentally going up. So what I'm now looking for is when the Bitcoin dominance does start to go down. That's typically when we're going to have, you know, what's known as the alt run. However, you have to identify which alts are actually moving. And regarding to the move, well, the most recent one we had was the April 21st and whatnot, right? The large percentage of coins that we saw were majority on Solana, and they were meme coins. So we had like Fart coin moving, we had Trump coin moving, we had Popcat moving, we had Flog moving, we had Floki moving as well. And then some of the blue chip alts, the one that really stood out was Sui. If anybody had been paying attention, Sui went from like $1 to like, I think it wicked up almost to $4. So that was very interesting to watch. So monitoring that, and then moreover, this here too is really, really, really important. This is the DXY, the DEXY, right? And you could see with the trade wars, you know, James, would you argue that this is the administration doing this to make the dollar cheaper and more affordable for imports, exports?
Yeah. So again, I think there were deals cut before all this trade war being started, right?
Yeah.
I think trade war is just a kabuki theater to cover up what they're going to really do, which were discussed with the Janet Yellen going to China and Japan last year. So China needed weaker dollars, okay? And Americans, you know, wanted the interest rate lower so they can refinance it, right? And Japan wanted to unwind their yen carriage rate, right? So some kind of deal were cut. And that's where I think this is going to all end up at the end, is that China is going to get weaker dollar, right? And somehow Fed's going to bring those rates down, and Japan's going to try to get out of this negative interest rate environment to unwind the yen carriage rate. So that's where it's going to all ultimately end up. How are we going to get there? That's the question, right? We got the tariff thing going. We got, you know, people back and forth. We got the Ukraine saying that they just signed the mineral deal, right? Then, you know, Fed said, oh, we might lower the rate, we might not. Treasury is saying that, hey, we might come in and start pumping in liquidity. So you got all these players playing their roles, right? But always remember that end of the day, U.S. wants to refinance. That means the liquidity has to come in.
And it's basically just adding uncertainty and more uncertainty.
Yeah, which traders love, right, Louis? The val and uncertainty. That's how traders make money, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And if it was just straight chart of just straight line going up, everybody would be making money.
Yeah, so totally true. Now, I'm going to bring this. So this is how I'm looking at things, and we're going to wrap it up here, chat. But take a look here. Really, really important. So if you want to make some money, this is what you got to do. You got to be tracking Bitcoin price, right? Everything from what we've been looking at and how everything seems to be kept on pushing and pushing. We're kicking the can down the road. As James said, we are healthily recharging, detoxing, you know, from this catastrophic move upwards that we had here, which was just totally insane. So we had that, and now we're kind of in this cool off period. But now, I mean, I'm in Tokyo, so it's May 1st, basically, right? So it is May 1st in Tokyo. We are, you know, we're almost halfway through the year. Now, everything seems to be kicking the can down the road. A lot of people forget, too, when we had a lot of these Bitcoin movements, During this whole time here, okay, we were having rate cuts as well. These were catalysts on top of the ETFs, on top of Trump getting in office. That they kind of got swept under the rug because everybody's like, Trump's in office, Trump is off, woo, 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 right? And then, but we were also cutting interest rates. So the Fed said they're going to be doing at least 2 cuts this year. Now, Polymarket, as you know, is a really great indicator. The May 7th FOMC meeting, we'll have coverage on that next week, most likely. We are pretty much at a 94% no change, and this has been something the average retailer, trader, and person has been looking at as well. That's most likely going to result in no change. June is also, because Polymarket is just such a good indicator. Today we did drop 48% with no change, and we had kind of the same there in regards to the 43% for the 25 basis points decrease. At 50 basis points was 8.4% down, though. That would be phenomenal. But if you look at July, because this keeps on getting kicked down the road here, July has consistently been, since about April 2nd here, July has been consistently looking like we are going to have our first set of rate cuts here in 2025. So what I'm looking at is everything, in my opinion, looking at it from a macro perspective, it looks like we are most likely going to be getting some rate cuts late into summer. So late Q2, early Q3, and then we're probably going to have a couple more in Q4. But everything, in my opinion, from what I'm looking at, and I think the the gentleman on the panel are on the same boat with me. It's looking like we're going to have another Q4 blow off top, and then from there, we don't know what's going to happen next. But I think if you're going to plant the seeds, if you're going to make the gamble, if you're going to make the play, when it's calm and sub 100K Bitcoin right now, probably the best idea. Obviously, not financial advice. Nobody really knows what's going to happen, because if that was the case, we'd be on a tropical island somewhere. But here we are. So that being said, it just seems like we're gearing up for a Q4 run. And remember, this is going to be short. It's like, remember the crazy moves we had in November was like what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ish, and then everything started kind of slowing down with Bitcoin as the year closed out. And then also now with the institutions involved, they're going to want to close their books out properly in Q4 and then re-gear up for 2026. So hold on, and stay tuned, because
I think we're about to see some fireworks. Finally.
Yeah, we're much needed. This rally we had was much needed, and a breath of fresh air for a lot of traders, myself included. I am kind of coming out of the bear perspective and starting to look at things at a different angle. But that's going to do it for us today, guys. So massive ETF inflows, $3 billion. BlackRock, despite the overall number being down today, has consistently been pumping literally billions of dollars into Bitcoin for the last 2 weeks. Will it continue? We have the Federal Reserve meeting on May 7th. Okay, so that's 1 week-ish from today. 1 week from today. So maybe we'll cover that live as the Tokyo Crypto Show goes live next week. So that being said, guys, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate you for watching, and until then, we'll see you next time.